Hey, what's up? This is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. Now, who's ready for some fighting words? In this video, I want to talk about Tim Tszyu, and I want to talk about the return of Jermell Charlo to 154 pounds. Really quick, if you like the videos, you like the channel, please take the time, subscribe to the channel right now. It just takes one click. Also, hit that thumbs up button. Also, just takes one click. And without further ado, let's jump into this. So, unfortunately for Jermell Charlo, things did not work out in his bout against Canelo Alvarez. It went extremely wrong for him. However, he did get what he was seeking after. He got a big payday. But everything else, the glory that he was speaking of, it never came. So, unfortunately, now he has to go back down to 154 pounds with his head down low in shame and make that long walk. Well, that's great for one person in particular, Tim Tszyu. The guy that, he kind of bypassed to have the Canelo fight. And the guy who's been waiting on Jermell Charlo since he unified everything. So there you have it. There is somebody waiting on you, and he's ultra pissed off. Unfortunately, this fight is not going to take place anytime soon, only because Tim Tszyu has Mendoza. However, if I'm Tim Tszyu, I would just give Mendoza a check and say, step aside and let me and Jermell Charlo have our date, have our dance, and listen, I'm going to write you an IOU. If I unify all these belts, I'll come back and I'll talk to you. But I don't necessarily feel like there's a reason for the Mendoza fight. Really. I never really felt like there was a reason for it. I mean, I get it. Tim Tszyu has to stay busy. So I totally get it. But based at the time what was going on, there was the circle that I mentioned. The circle was Canelo Alvarez. The circle was Jermell Charlo. The circle was possibly Errol Spence, but also Terrence Crawford. And the way things are looking, Canelo is eliminating all those options. So that circle has been broken. That little band of brothers is not going to happen. So there you go. That's the reason why Jermell Charlo is coming back. I said from the jump, if Jermell Charlo made a strong case for himself in the Canelo Alvarez fight, then Canelo, being who he is, he would try to get a rematch, or he would get a rematch simply because he wants to make it undisputably clear that he could beat Jermell Charlo. But based on the fact that it really just looked like a glorified sparring match, there's no need for that. So like I said, Jermell Charlo is going to make his way back down to 154, and he has he's got some people to talk to. One person in particular, that's Tim Tszyu. Now, the real question is, when could this fight take place? Now, I have not been shy in saying, no disrespect to Mendoza, but I think Tim Tszyu is going to run through him like warm butter. Like, I just think he's going to demolish Mendoza. And I already said Mendoza was going to get, his head knocked off simply because Tim Tszyu had to wait. Now I think Tim Tszyu is going to knock off Mendoza's head simply because the quicker I knock him out, the faster I can unify. And now it's not a race anymore, and it's not a time thing. Now it's on Tim Tszyu, which is the reason why I say, write the man a check, send him on his merry way, tell him to go take the wife and kids out or something, go on a nice vacation. Once we figure our business out, Jermell Charlo and Tim Tszyu, I'll be sure to call you if I am the victor on the night of. I think this is going to be, here's my thing with Jermell Charlo and Tim Tszyu. Did Jermell Charlo beat Canelo Alvarez? No. Was it competitive? No. However, he did stay in there for 12 rounds against, the man right now. Okay. I'm a firm believer in that people learn even in loss. Canelo Alvarez got tremendously better after he lost to Floyd Mayweather. So I'm expecting Jermell Charlo to look better in his next bout for two reasons. One, he just got, taken out by the man, Canelo Alvarez. But you learn things. Canelo Alvarez is pretty fast for his size and everything like that. But he's very knowledgeable. He's a pressure fighter. He's very strong. He hits hard. So there's a lot of things you can pick up from that. And I think a lot of those qualities are the same qualities that Tim Tszyu has. So I think it's interesting that, he'll be facing Tim Tszyu, sooner than later, probably, hopefully sooner than later. But I think after facing Canelo, slightly, I'm leaning toward Jermell Charlo, slightly, just because of that. Now, when you factor in morale, well, Tim Tszyu's on a tear, and Tim Tszyu's very hungry. And Tim Tszyu feels like something was taken from him. And that thing that was taken from him was the opportunity to fight for undisputed. So when you factor in all those things, that kind of brings, let's say if I had Jermell Charlo right here, well, that kind of brings Tim Tszyu up. Because like I said, morale, you're a little low right now. You did just lose, Jermell Charlo. You did just lose. So morale, you're a little low. However, based upon who you lost to, I do believe you learned something. And I think now they're not a mirror image of each other. When you look at Canelo Alvarez and you look at Tim Tszyu, they are different. But again, their strong suits are equal. They're pressure fighters who come forward. A little bit of head movement on one, but a whole lot of head movement on the other. Both of them like to cut off the ring, pretty solid at that. Both of them hit hard. Both of them are solid counter punchers. So they're a lot alike. Both of them will go to the body. Both of them are singular punchers. They're a lot alike. So when you factor that in, I do have to raise Jermell Charlo just a little higher, if nothing else, maybe a notch or two, just a little higher. But like I said, when you factor in just the desire and the hunger, and that should have been me fighting Jermell Charlo, then you raised Tim Tszyu a little higher. And I think it's just going to be interesting to see the two guys in there. I feel sorry for Mendoza. I just feel like that guy's going to get his head knocked into the third row. Just because Tim Tszyu just wants to get through that fight as fast as humanly possible. Then he can call out Jermell Charlo. And the thing is, Jermell Charlo was already talking about Terrence Crawford after the fight. And I'm like, Terrence Crawford is not thinking about you anymore. He's not thinking about you. And why aren't you trying to reclaim your belt? There's some issues with Jermell Charlo. Why are you talking about Terrence Crawford? You should be focused on Tim Tszyu, because after the fight, Jermell didn't mention Tim Tszyu, but he was saying Crawford's name quite a bit. And I get it. Crawford's the man right now, so I get it. You want to try to go for another money grab, because that would be another money grab. So I totally get it. But at the same time, I think in terms of marketability, Tim Tszyu is easily as marketable or slightly more marketable than Terrence Crawford right now, depending on where you do it in terms of region. Now, if you do it in Australia, are you kidding me? This is the fight of the year if you're doing it in Australia. Possibly if you do it in the UK, I don't understand why it would be there, but I'm just saying, just throwing that out there. But if you do it in America, then I totally get it. You want to go for Terrence Crawford. Plus, Terrence Crawford is ranked a lot higher than Tim Tszyu, and in terms of notoriety and overall respect. So I understand it from a business standpoint. I get it. You want to go for the next highest payday. That would be Terrence Crawford. He's riding high on what he did to Spence. Totally get it. But you do a Tim Tszyu fight in Australia, you might break the bank. You could very well break the bank. And you could do what you were supposed to do in the Canelo fight. Put on a good enough showing, and maybe there's another fight. Maybe this thing turns into a trilogy. Listen, that's sometimes how things work. So there was a possibility for that, but, who knows. In terms of Tim Tszyu, I think this is going to be a really interesting fight. And there's two things I want to touch on before I'm done. The psychology of Jermell Charlo, his mental. So when he lost to Tony Harrison, he was crying and weeping. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not knocking that. I don't have an issue with a fighter who's crying. That shows me that you're passionate and you love what you do. So I don't have an issue with that. But he was uncontrollable. His brother had to speak for him. Then when he loses to Canelo, he had a big smile on his face. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess you're sad. Maybe he was sad in the back room. Maybe he got his cry out, possibly. Or maybe he was a little sad and then he thought about how many zeros were on his check and then he turned happy again. That could also be a thing. But he didn't seem too shaken up. And I think that could be for, two reasons. One, the amount of money that he made. Two, nobody was expecting him to win anyway. And, well, actually, and then there's another reason. Three, I'm still the man at 154 pounds. It wasn't like he was going to stay at 168 pounds to begin with anyway, say he was to win against Canelo Alvarez. So it didn't really matter to him. He wasn't going to stay there. It was a pit stop. It was a quick money grab / pit stop. And then he's going to run and make his way back down to 154 pounds. Not knocking that. That's called business. Not knocking that. But here we are. We're back at 154 pounds. I think it's time for Jermell Charlo to start verbally saying Tim Tszyu's name. You have to mention the man, whether you like it or not. He's becoming the boogeyman. And the thing is, you don't want people to grow any bigger than what maybe you feel they are. But I can tell you, public perception, you don't say the man's name. You don't acknowledge the guy's presence. You never do. You've never acknowledged the man's presence. And I think it's time for you to acknowledge that Tim Tszyu is there. He's out there. And he's only getting better. He's only getting better. He's only getting stronger. He's only getting faster. He's only learning, And I think this Mendoza fight, although I don't think it lasts 4 rounds, he will learn something from it. I don't know. And again, he'll be coming off a win. And I am saying that earlier. He's going to flatline Mendoza. He'll be coming off a win while you're coming off a loss. And whether or not you care that much about that loss, because I don't truly think he cares, it's still a loss. And there's still doubt in your head because you went from being the man to being a unified champ that just got beat. So it does matter. It does matter a lot. Morale matters, especially to a fighter. It matters. So those are my thoughts. I'm curious to know what you guys think. What do you think about Jermell Charlo going back down to 154 pounds? What do you think about him never saying Tim Tszyu's name? What do you think about him not saying Tim Tszyu's name after his fight with Canelo Alvarez? And how quickly do you think he's going to knock out Mendoza, Tim Tszyu? Drop your thoughts down below. As always, please like, please share, please subscribe to this channel.